There will be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers, so be careful, won't you?
Okay, here we go.
Couldn't loosen your pants.
Oh, I can do that. You just watch.
Not during the show.
Yeah.
Welcome to a special, no-holds-barred episode of Max Mike Movies. Why is it special? Because Max and Mike, that's me, are here together in our home offices of Kearney, Nebraska. And we're here to take another suggestion from you, our lovely listeners, as part of our series, Remember, You Asked For It. Last episode, we got a note from Degsy O'Brien where he recommended the Andersen tapes, amongst many others. Neither Max nor I, oh, well, you know what? We're going to leave all of those flubs in because you, the audience, want to hear what it really sounds like before I edit a show.
Yes, this is Max and Mike Unplugged.
That's right, except for the mic that's plugged in. Anyway, neither Max nor I had heard of it or seen it, and heck, it's got Sean Connery in it, so it must be good.
Sure.
Mustn't it? Helping me decide is that master of deciding, Max Decidotron Levine. Tell us about your decisive process, Max.
I can't choose.
Brilliant! And me, I'm just sitting here, glad of a couch in these trying times. Mike, whatever you say is fine with me. Loose. We got lots of Andersen to tape, so let's get to it. But before that, we want to get to you. No, you. Poll question. Last episode's question was a simple one, just like its asker. What's your favorite? What's your favorite?
That was me.
Yes, it was.
I asked.
You are strong. What's your favorite politically based movie? Your answers were anything but simple. Dave, if that really is your name, was first on the list, and he does not disappoint. Quote, "Oh dear, I love a film with a political message. That said, The Ruling Class is one of only 2 or 3 movies in my life where I walked out of the theater rather than sit through the whole thing. Charlie Wilson's War is hands down my favorite of the American ones. I always like an expat story where the guy who knows the foreign culture gets things right to the surprise of the majority. I have always found Oliver Stone's work to be trite but well-intentioned. Wall Street and Platoon come to mind. Not wild about either."
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of Platoon, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's more army than I would say political, but I suppose there's political
And there's a lot of text to it. Yeah, okay.
Dave continues, "Anti-war movies can hit the spot. Buffalo Soldier, Gallipoli, and even Full Metal Jacket, for example.
Oh, boy.
Political films are where the Japanese excel. Oh, boy. Mizoguchi's The Taira Clan was made during or right after the occupation and does a great job, metaphorically, of criticizing the imperial system, the pre-war military class, and the occupation government, all in the context of a story that was written in the 13th century. How did they know? Traitors of the Date Clan does high samurai political intrigue so well and is a really interesting adaptation of traditional stage techniques to film. There are a million more, especially from the late 60s, end quote." And those are all great answers.
Yeah,
Thanks,
nice
Dave.
one, Dave.
Next was Regan McStravick, who offered, quote, "A Face in the Crowd with Andy Griffith is excellent." And it's a really surprising role for Andy Griffith, too. Wag the Dog is great, too. Of course, Manchurian Candidate. For a film that touches on the culture of politics in a simplified but still pretty accurate way, Election, Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick is pretty good, too, end quote. Ooh, those go back away and see our entire episode on The Manchurian Candidate. Thanks, Regan. Richard someone wrote, quote,
Tatum inventor.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Totally did.
Shut up! Richard somebody wrote, quote, Bulworth, The Parallax View, All the President's Men, Bob Roberts, end quote.
Yeah.
Oh, good list. Thanks, Richard someone.
Tatum.
Nope. Adam Mark, essayist and smart guy, posted, quote, Primary Colors, 1998.
Yeah.
In a thinly masked depiction of President Clinton's 1992 campaign staffer, Henry Burton, joins the campaign of lustful, engaging Southern Governor Jack Stanton, who is running presidentially. But when he encounters secrets pertaining to Stanton's past and everyone's efforts to conceal or ignore them, he is forced to reconsider his decisions and test just what it takes, in terms of skills and moral compromises, to turn a candidate into a winner. Some of Elaine May's best writing. A stellar ensemble cast: John Travolta, Emma Thompson, Billy Bob Thornton, Adrian Lester, Maura Tierney, Paul Guilfoyle, Larry Hagman, Kathy Bates, Allison Janney, and so many others. It depicts the triumphs, low points, profundity, and absurdities of campaign life, and how every campaign is fundamentally based on a lie. The next thing he's going to say is a lie. And that lie is that things will be perfect if you just pick me. The final line, said by a lowly volunteer as now President-elect Travolta dips and spins First Lady Emma Thompson at their inaugural ball, rings so deeply true about the realities of campaigning in poetry, but governing in prose. Now, don't break our hearts. Always well written and spoken. Thanks, Adam. Neat.
Very nice.
Yeah. Dan Schaefer gave us, quote, "In the Loop is one of my favorites. Armando Iannucci's brilliant satire spun off his equally brilliant TV show, The Thick of It, based on the run-up to the Iraq War, centered on a hapless British MP who says the wrong things in an interview about impending war in the Middle East, and as a result has to navigate rival factions in Washington," end quote. Don't know In the Loop, but it sounds fascinating. Thanks, Dan. Tony Merrill answered, quote, "All the President's Men. I heard from a 50-year Washington Post correspondent that is an extraordinarily accurate movie," end quote. I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Nick Hoffman's answer was simple. Very simple. Quote, "Strangely enough, I'd have to go with 1776," end quote.
Interesting.
Well, not at
First
all.
musical.
Yeah, not at all strange. Thanks, Nick. Are there many other political musicals?
Hamilton?
Yeah, that's historical more than political, I'd say. But
There's a lot of politics in there.
yeah, I guess it can still be political if it's not like, current. But for now, we have to go to a faraway foreign country for our last written answer. Canada. Cold, elusive, mysterious is where Vince lives. No one knows from whence he came, but he still answered our question in Canada-ese. Quote, "I think many political films are good, but often the ones I see are too depressing to be listed as favorite. Night and Fog, 1955 is a documentary I think everyone should watch and live with the nightmares it gives, especially as the states head up that road again.
Yeah, he ain't wrong.
1984, which oddly came out in 1984, was devastating to watch, but again, it has a lot to say about now.
Yeah.
Being There, 1979, I guess I can call a favorite, as it says a lot, but in a funny way, and is a great film that gives depth to the comedy in it," end quote.
Wow.
That's a very interesting list indeed. Thanks, Vince.
How sad is it that Being There is the lightest and funniest of the three?
Yeah, also that he would care about politics living in Canada where they don't have any.
Nope, that's right. They're simply ruled over by their Emperor Penguin.
Wag, wag, wag. The Emperor Penguin, I see what you did there. Don't do that again.
I'll do it every day.
No, don't.
Constantly.
But looks like we have a message left on our amazing Message-O-Tron.
Oh, please let it be from my little cabbage.
And you may not have known this, but it's powered by the energy bursting from a box of Bumpy Puck cereal.
Bumpy Pokes, Bumpy Pokes, Bumpy Pokes, Bumpy Pokes.
Hoped we'd forgotten that one, didn't you? Well, it seems we haven't, and we haven't forgotten this week's caller either. Max, button up that overcoat. Seems like it's your beau du jour, Doris Hempelmeyer.
Oh, baby.
Hello, Max Mike Movies. Hi, Max. Doris Hempelmeyer here to answer your question, what is the best or your favorite political movie? I'm going to give you a couple of ones that you might not get otherwise. I think somebody gave you Manchurian Candidate, which is a good movie, and it's a thriller, and it's crazy with the stuff that goes on in there. Another one is The Candidate. If you don't know this one, it stars Robert Redford, and he's kind of put to being a candidate, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, kind of like most of them, huh? And the last one I'm going to throw in there is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying and Got to Love the Bomb, or however that really long title goes. I know all of that stuff is in there. If that ain't a satire on how the world really is, I don't know what is, and that is definitely very political. So those are my three answers. Love to listen to you guys. Max. Bye.
Huh. Well, she didn't mention you this week, Max. Just candidate, Manchurian Candidate, and Dr. Strangelove. Maybe she's got someone else, you two-timing four-flusher.
Hussy.
Sorry. So, yeah, that's our little message from Doris. Thank you, Doris.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe she didn't like the bouquet of tuna fish.
Maybe because you didn't share the popcorn with her.
Well, maybe.
Anyway, we just would also like to thank everybody else who answered besides Doris. Yep. We love your answers. But Max, what about you? What's your favorite politically based movie?
Oh boy, politically based movies tend to stress me out a lot.
Then why did you ask it?
Because it's also very interesting. One of mine is Enemy of the State. Which is less, it's about politics, but it's also about, the surveillance state. I got to go with Dave, though. Charlie Wilson's War, I really enjoy, and I did not expect to.
Yeah, I don't know that one. I haven't seen it.
And Primary Colors, I don't know why, but that movie is just so appealing to me. And yes, it is weird watching John Travolta doing an uncanny version of President Clinton.
I can't picture that.
Yeah. I couldn't either until I saw it, but he can do it.
Did they do everything, including the, love you long time in the Oval Office? Or?
Not exact. No, this was, like I say, a fictionalized version of it. But they do make very clear reference to all the women he slept with.
Oh.
Yeah, because Monica was just one.
Well.
But what about you?
Oh yes, me.
What's your favorite Politico movie?
Yeah, it's not my favorite subject matter either. Manchurian Candidate was good.
Yeah.
I think it holds up in its way, but of course it's so much of the Cold War that it's sort of doesn't work today. They remade it though, I think.
They did with Denzel Washington. I think.
Was it any good?
I didn't see it.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if you've seen Face in the Crowd.
No,
with Andy Griffith.
I don't think I have.
Wow, that's a really interesting film, and it is not the Andy Griffith we've come to know and love.
It's not Paul?
It is not.
It's not Matlock?
They basically get him going on that pretext that he is that down-home, the clarity we need from the down-home wisdom of Andy Griffith. But turns out Andy Griffith is kind of a jerk, and they end up catching him on camera being himself.
Oh, dear.
And he blows his own election. But it's actually a really interesting film, and it was done a long time ago. So, sure, I'll pick those two.
Okay,
but,
cool.
Again, thank you for all your awesome answers. Remember, we're on Bluesky, too, so if you're heading that way, you can answer this week's question there as well. And, we'll get back to all that stuff later. But what is your favorite performance by Sean Connery's hairpiece? Sean Connery. I meant Sean Connery. Is it Bond or Beyond?
No.
Let us know on those ways, which we'll go through later on. But let's get this pony rolling now with
the facts.
Remember, this is the Andersen tapes. And again, as you can just tell, we are live.
Yeah.
Thank you for providing the liveness.
So hungover.
From what? You had one drink
February?
2 days ago.
I know, man. I was out of control.
God, what a lightweight. Anyway, the Andersen tapes. Budget, $3 million.
Okay.
Must have been used to mostly get people out of New York City. Take $5 million, which isn't great.
No, but it made some money.
Even then, you had to get at least twice, and that's not twice. Hey, that's no apartment building.
What?
That's a convent.
What?
Believe it or not, that's what that was.
It wasn't a space station?
Well, no, but you remember that giant painted ceiling and stuff they had, which seemed kind of odd.
It was a kind of... some of those old New York buildings have really odd architectural touches in them. I thought it was possible.
Yeah.
But that staircase, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. This is the last film appearance by Margaret Hamilton, best known as the Wicked Witch of the West.
She'll get us, my little pretties.
Or Cora the Coffee Pot, I think, too.
Oh, right.
And this is also the first appearance by newcomer Christopher Walken. I've heard good things about that young lad. He may be going places.
I hear he'd be okay if he could just bring in a little more cowbell.
No! No. That moratorium. No more of that.
Oh, there's going to be so much more of that.
No, there is not. I will start editing again. So while most of New York was cooperatively empty, there was one point where there was an actual mob funeral going on in the background in some of the scenes. Seems the attendees were worried they might look bad on camera, so demanded a copy of the movie from its director.
Okay, well, if the mob wants an advance copy, you give them an advance copy.
I would think so. Although I wonder what they thought about the mob aspects of the plot. Didn't say.
Yeah.
Though it has no real bearing on the plot, the depictions of surveillance of the Black Panthers was based on fact, which does not surprise me in
Not
the
at all.
least. The dynamic duo will be back. Christopher Walken will star with another James Bond actor when he shows up as the villain in A View to a Kill with his wig.
Stacy, look out! A blimp!
See our entire episode on James Bond.
Hey.
Was that our
That was a series.
100? Might have been the 100.
No.
Oh, it was
We
a
did a
series.
whole
That's right. That was
series.
a
Get 'em,
series.
Jimmy.
That's right. Though his nearly last Bond film would premiere the same year, Sean Connery used this film to try and break out of his typecasting in that part. And it worked. He would make a lot of non-Bond films until being coaxed back to inexplicably remake a Bond film he was already in. Never Say Never Again. Way to go, Sean. Other than that, there's a distinct lack of trivia for this, so we won't linger unless... Do you want to linger? Do you have any lingerings?
No, but I thought you were going to mention who directed it.
Oh, yeah, Sidney Lumet. And other than that, you want to talk... What else has he directed that we might have heard of?
Well, Diamonds Are Forever, which came out, I believe, the same year.
How did he do that?
I don't know.
Apparently he did.
Also, Murder on the Orient Express, the 1974. Also, Serpico.
Serpico! Yeah!
12 Angry Men.
I'm angry. That's a good one.
Yep, and Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Don't know that one.
That was one in mid-2000s. No, Colin Farrell and...
Looking confused?
I keep wanting to think Philip Michael Glaser. It's one of the... Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Often mistaken for Paul
It's
Michael
one of those
Glaser.
three named guys. It throws me.
Philip Seymour Hoffman was, in fact, in the TV show bearing his name, I can't remember the name of it. Starsky and Hutch. He was in Starsky and Hutch. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Really?
No.
I didn't.
No.
He could have been
No.
hey, officer, there he goes. Thanks, Phil. He would have been a kid, but he could have done it.
Born then. Anyway, so, yeah.
Those are the main ones. That's pretty much all I had with Sidney. Sidney Lumet was a power for a while, on and off. He's just very clearly kind of hit or miss.
Yeah. Well, that filled 30 seconds of screen time here, so let's get to the plot. Duke, tough guy thief, is being released after spending a long time in prison paying for his crimes. And has he learned his lesson? Oh, yes! He and his friends, the Kid and Oldster Pops, make their way into town where Duke rendezvouses with his old flame Ingrid. She lives in a very high-class apartment studded about with rich people just aching to be robbed. So, obligingly, Duke plans to do just that, gathering the Kid and an impossible mission force to empty the apartments of their sparkling contents. Oh, must be vampires.
Sparkle, sparkle.
What Duke doesn't know is that some of the people he's trying to recruit are under surveillance by government parties unknown. And so is Ingrid. See, her married boyfriend, who pays for her nearly everything, isn't too keen on her seeing anyone else, especially Duke. And he threatens to make big noises if Ingrid doesn't choose him over Duke. Sadly, she does so, and then Duke goes through with his plan without her. Each step of the way, someone's looking, someone's listening, though, as it turns out, that's not what finally gives Duke away to the cops. One of the occupants is a bedridden boy who has a hack radio set, and once he's left alone, he makes a plea to whoever's listening to send the cops, please. And boy, howdy do they. Silently, the cops assemble quite the army outside the apartment building and get themselves set up to catch the gang as they try to exit the building. And, without a lot of fuss, just a couple of car crashes later, that's what they do. Duke's going back to the slammer. Or he dies, as is the rest of the gang. And the feds that were spying on the Black Panthers, they have to erase all their tapes before they're found out, as it turns out they didn't have any warrants to be doing all that wiretapping nonsense. The end.
No. The film. Boy, howdy do they?
Yeah.
It's howdy do they time. It's howdy do they time.
Hey, what do you want for nothing? Lyrics? Anyway.
Yeah.
So, usual question, Max.
Yes.
Hey, you hadn't heard of this?
I'd not heard of it, never seen it. Nope.
So, we had a Sean Connery film coming out at the end of his long run as Bond, where neither of us had heard of it. I wonder if that says anything about the film. But this is Degsy's pick. Thank you, Degsy.
Yeah.
So
maybe you took some time off from foiling me, you landscape painting bastard.
I think he must be on a big case. He hasn't answered the question in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Good. Maybe he's off foiling somebody else.
Either that or you finally annoyed him away from the show.
Not possible.
You certainly try. Anyway, let's talk about this cast.
This is a very odd cast.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, the Canary.
Have you ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah. He was an old vaudeville actor, wasn't he?
No, I don't think so.
Yes, that's right. Sean Connery.
I think he's a singer of some sort. That's why they call him a Canary. Anyway,
I think you're wrong, you rogue.
Sean Connery, I'll give him this much. He's not wearing his hairpiece in this one.
No, and he doesn't need it. I don't understand why he kept going for it. He looks good with less hair.
I don't think he did. I think, honestly, it was...
the movie?
Yeah, that was actually true of Jack Klugman, strangely. Like, in all of his public appearances, he would show up without his hairpiece, but always on the screen, he wore it for Odd Couple and whatever. But yeah. Huh. So what do you think of Sean? Is he particularly not James Bond in this?
He's pretty not James Bond. He's a little more squeamish. His accent is a tad intermittent. We're also supposed to believe, because he's referred to as a limey.
I'm not a limey. I'm a Scotty.
Yeah, we're supposed to apparently believe he's English, which I bet he didn't like.
It doesn't matter. I guess this is based on a book. Maybe the character in the book is British, which
maybe that's
quite honestly does not matter one way or the other.
It also could simply be that the cop who calls him that just thinks of everybody in the UK as a limey.
Well, but also, like, wouldn't there be a potential of him just being deported?
Yeah, unless he's a naturalized citizen. I mean, the fact that he spent 10 years in an American prison suggests he's a citizen or some such. They would have.
I'm a citizen of the world, Trebek. Yeah, so he's fine.
He does a decent job. Yeah,
he's fine.
Yeah, we don't really learn anything about him. I mean, this isn't so much a character-driven picture, although it tries to be at odd times.
Well, let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Sean does okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's my particular favorite performance, but we'll find that out next week. Diane Cannon.
Yeah, as the Ingrid Everly, the lady of the evening.
Well, we mostly see her during the day.
Yes, but she is a sex worker.
Well, is she?
Yes, she is. They're very clear about that.
Well, yes, they are. No, they're not. I mean, it seems to me that she's being paid for by her boyfriend who's married, and he pays for things, but I kind of get the impression that she doesn't want to be thought of that way, even though that's that arrangement. But I don't get the idea that she has other customers.
I thought that was one of the first ones that she blew off. So when Sean shows up,
no, she told Werner he couldn't come over. Yeah, Werner. Hard to play hardball when your name's Werner.
Werner Turner.
Yeah, she's fine. I mean, she's very pretty in that '70s way, which means that nobody was eating.
She is also kind of a confusing character. She seems like hard as nails. She wants to be self-sufficient and self-reliant, but she's not. She's completely kept.
Yeah. And is the only female character that really has much of anything to do, and even then isn't very much.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Martin Balsam, well, he goes back for me at least to Psycho.
Oh, yeah, he goes way back. Martin Balsam's been in everything.
But here...
yeah, he's playing a gay, antiques appraiser?
He owns an antique shop. Yeah, and does... I'm willing to bet Martin Balsam has, at this point... met some gay people.
I don't think he had by 1971.
It's a very stereotypical portrayal.
Yeah, he might as well have been an interior decorator.
Well, as opposed to an actor in this case.
Well, yes.
His performance is problematic. The one thing I will say about the film, as much as they stereotype his character, the other members of the gang don't seem to care one way or the other.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to them. It's always the police or the whoever's surveilling who refer to him with the F word.
Yeah. There's not a lot of nuance there, but to be fair, there also wasn't much representation in the early 70s.
No, but they make him, he's the weak link, he's the coward, he's the one who's afraid.
Well, but that's not what he's there for.
No.
He's, they have him for his expertise in figuring out what's worth anything and what's not worth anything, so don't waste time on stealing the wrong things. But we'll get back to wasting time. Ralph Meeker as Captain Delaney. Which one was him?
He was the incompetent cop who tells Garrett Morris, basically, go get him.
Isn't he also the cop who, when entering the apartment near the end of the film and finds a gun on the floor, picks it up with his bare hands?
Yes, he is. Yeah, I don't think Captain Delaney is a very good policeman.
Yeah, so, he's there.
Yeah.
And somebody... Alan King is Pat Angelo.
That was a shock. I mean, Alan King, I've known him as a stand-up and a comic actor and writer. I didn't picture him as a mob guy, except he's played a bunch of them, I think.
I think he has, and I think he does fine.
He actually does a really decent job.
King, that's Italian, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does fine. Next, we have the...
this unknown
willowy,
Yes.
Blonde, peach fuzz-faced
Delicately.
the kid, played by Christopher Walken, who I think at this point might have been old enough to drink, but I'm not sure.
He's a baby in this. And I didn't realize this when Christopher Walken was young. He was kind of pretty.
Yeah.
I don't mean he's an interesting looking man. He always has been. But he's pretty. He's very, very delicate features. And his eyes haven't pouched up so you can see how big and blue they are.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I don't know where Christopher Walken's from. If he was not from Holland or Denmark or something like that, it would surprise me. Because he looks very much of that area. Not that it matters when... Apparently, he's from Glasgow.
No,
okay.
His mom. He was born in Queens.
Well, that explains it.
Yeah. Oh, sure. But yeah, his dad's name is Welken, who was a German immigrant.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So Vulcan, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Vulcan, would you like to play a game? I think he does fine. I mean, he comes out. I wouldn't say it's an astounding performance, but it's solid.
He has very little to do.
Yeah.
But also he becomes kind of interesting. He's like an early hippie, and in some ways, like, no man, violence isn't my scene.
Yeah, he doesn't want to hurt anybody either.
Yeah.
Then we have a couple of people. That are
there's more people. I mean, a couple of the others in the, was it Dick Anthony Williams playing Edward Spencer?
Yeah, he's
there.
Got a tiny part.
Yeah.
Strangely, though, in the middle of nowhere, we have Garrett Morris.
Yeah, Garrett Morris is this very serious portrayal, although he does have a certain... When he realizes what the captain wants, and the fact that the captain is like, I wanted you specifically, and you can see on his face the irony of... You wanted the black guy, didn't you?
Well, and here's the thing. What does he want him for? I want you to take a rope to an opposite building, swing it across to the building in question, and then climb the rope down so you can get to the top and come down and get the bad guys. That's what I want you here
Now,
for.
to be fair, he's leading a squad, and there's only one or two other black guys in it. The others are white. By the way, that is a real... The logo he has on his... collar is for the New York Police Tactical Squad.
Right.
They're a real group. They're a real part of New York. And they would have done things like swing from building to building, except they don't seem to know how to do it very well.
I mean, I think it was actually, in a way, a more realistic portrayal of what they'd have to work with at like no notice. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't help but, and this isn't fair because he wouldn't do this for at least another 4 years, but I kept waiting for him to turn towards the screen and go, top story tonight!
Yep. Or break into song,
Yeah. We have Stan Gottlieb as Pop, who's
old.
Adequate.
He's fine.
Ish.
He's actually kind of an interesting character. He's the... What do they call him? Old lag, the guy who's been in prison most of his life, and he's the one who's having the most trouble adapting to being out.
I think it's fair to say that he doesn't adapt at all.
No, he doesn't.
He basically, at the end of the film, goes, oh, good, take me and I get to go back to prison.
Yeah, pretty much. And, here and there we've got... That's most of the major performers. We've got things like Margaret Hamilton is in there.
She plays an old lady being robbed. And Conrad Bain. And here we go. Yeah. Here may be the point that you go, this film was worth it. Is that at one point, Conrad Bain gets punched right in the face.
Hard. And there's something... I don't particularly care one way or the other about Conrad Bain, but there's something so very punchable about him. And it's a very satisfying moment.
Well, maybe we should just let bygones be bygones because, different strokes for different folks.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
So we have a cast of 70s regulars.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah.
and they're fine.
It's like a lot of these guys are going to be showing up on the Love Boat.
Except for Sean Connery.
No, Sean didn't do it, but a bunch of those others did.
No, but so the acting, here's the thing, the style of directing. We have one of the things that's going on here is that we're sympathizing or meant to sympathize with basically the crooks,
Yeah,
right?
the bad guys.
And to be fair, the cops that we see in this, we don't really see cops. What we see, and this is, I was confused by this, is we start the movie basically seeing the guys get out of jail, and almost immediately they are picked up by surveillance of one type or another. One of the things I had actually forgotten about, did you remember those check cashing cameras that they used to have at the supermarket and stuff? Yeah. Used to be, if you were like cashing a check at the supermarket or even at the bank, there was this camera mounted on a pole right next to the teller, and they would take your photo with the check.
Oh, man, I do not remember that at all, but I believe it.
Yeah, because there was a camera facing down, so their check would be in part of the picture, and then there was a camera facing the person, so they would take a photo that included both.
Oh, okay.
And that way they could go, this is the person who, cashed the check.
Yeah, there's a lot about surveillance in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
One thing, what did you think of the soundtrack?
The Quincy Jones?
Was that Quincy Jones?
Yeah, it was. It was Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It's a little experimental to start, of very much using synthesizers. It gets a little funky later on.
The beeping really got on my nerves. Every time there was some kind of surveillance camera or microphone, you suddenly get this boop, boop, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop on the soundtrack.
Well, it's to suggest computers watching, which they weren't.
They weren't, yes.
No.
That kind of grated, I found. I found the rest of the soundtrack fine, but that part just started to get on my nerves.
I think that it was... I mean, we're talking again early 70s. There was experimentation going on. It reminded me a little initially of the soundtrack to Andromeda Strain, which I mentioned last week.
Did you notice when the font they used for the credits, didn't that look like the Andromeda Strain font?
Yeah.
That was the first thing I saw.
That space font has been around forever, and it's supposed to look futuristic, and it's supposed to suggest computers and whatever.
Technology.
Yeah, so we start off with the gang getting out of jail and more or less going their own ways, although they don't seem to live more than a block away from each other. And they're showing all their surveillance. But the first thing we see that's out of the ordinary is that apparently Ingrid's apartment is bugged and she's being taped. Now, I don't know about you, but I was confused, and I thought, oh, they don't trust this guy. That's already keeping
what I
tabs.
thought. And I think that was a red herring, because it turns out, I mean, all of the other surveillance is pretty clearly FBI or Justice Department or the government, but that Ingrid is being bugged by her sugar daddy, Werner.
Well, she's being bugged by a private investigator.
Yes, who is working for Werner.
But he also makes those weird overdubs that say case number blah, 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 day whatever.
Detectives do that.
I know, but he was doing it the same way the feds were doing it. With weird numbers and stuff. So I thought they were the same thing.
You got to remember, a lot of private detectives are former law enforcement.
No, I understand that, but at least for me, I was confused in the beginning, thinking that all of this surveillance is like, why are they paying so much attention to this guy? Like,
I'm not saying I worked it out. It wasn't until Werner says, "Oh yeah, I had this place bugged."
Yeah,
it's like, oh. Because that's what I thought. I thought private detective, maybe they were contracting out or something, but...
Well, and then it gets a little weird because we see Ingrid's being bugged, which means that she may or may not be in on it. It turns out she's not. So the next thing we see our buddy Duke, played by Sean Connery, go off looking for people to do this heist from this apartment building. And he goes to this apartment that's above a Black Panther's headquarter place, and he's being surveilled upon, and we hear them talking, saying, unidentified male.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Wait a minute.
He literally just came out of the federal penitentiary. Why don't they know who he is?
Well, they don't have computerized records at this point. They would actually have had to go and, pull his file and get a look at him.
But that never changes.
No,
he goes later on back to, unidentified male came back. And so I'm like, all right, so if you don't know who he is, why are you spying on him? I don't understand this. And I was confused. Were you?
Initially, yes, but I did begin to realize, he's just sort of a peripheral to this.
Yeah.
I thought they were surveilling
Alan King?
Yeah, Alan King.
Well, they were.
Yeah. Some of them were.
What I can't figure out is why they would think that Alan King had connections to the Black Panther.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
So, I think the theme of the film is that we're all being watched all the time. Oh, you poor sweet summer children. You have no idea.
Clue. No, it's not even close.
No. But for me, it was a confusing element because what happens is Duke continues to make plans to have his friends basically show up on a holiday weekend. I think it's Labor Day weekend. With a moving van and basically rip off all these rich people's apartments.
Yeah.
Which, okay, not the most crazily intricate plan ever, but sounds workable.
Yeah, given the security on that building, which is a guy.
Yeah. The thing that's weirded me out is, so he goes to one of his old buddies, somebody whose father he had done a favor for in the mob, and says, hey, I basically want money.
And he'd seed money. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Oh, because he's got to rent a truck.
He
Got
didn't
to
rent
buy
a truck.
equipment.
He stole it.
But they have to buy equipment.
Like,
I mean, that's why they didn't have a lot. He asked for $1,700. That's even in 1971. That's not that much.
No, but
They had to get the outfits, the masks, the guns. They had to buy stuff.
it sounds
There's
like he
always-
asked this mob boss to finance this film.
A little bit.
Yeah, so they go, and there's kind of an interesting scene where he's talking to Alan King, mob boss, and Alan King's like, hey, I'm still the junior here, my father's in charge, tell you what, I'll go talk to him, we'll see what he says, because the whole thing sounds hinky to Alan King, mob boss, who quite now has moved on from this kind of thing. He's like, yeah, we're into like food delivery and catering and all this other stuff that basically we can just get large portions of and don't actually have to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, he represents the new version of the mafia where a lot of them went legit.
You can join the new syndicate.
Of course, this didn't stop them from using a lot of their old tactics, but
Sure, but Ticketron or whatever. Yeah. That's just like
Ticketmaster,
that's Ticketron because
right.
Ticketmaster is gentle and clean.
Yes, and kind to animals and puppies and stuff.
We're not getting into that concert.
We're not. No, we're really not.
So he's like, I don't want to deal with theft. It's too. Quite honestly, it's pocket change and it's too risky. Yeah. So he initially says, well, I'll go talk to Dad. And there's an interesting scene where Alan King, mob boss Jr., goes and talks to Dad, who's still quote unquote in charge. Except when we see Dad, it's literally, I had pudding today.
Yeah, Dad is not in charge of his own bowels at this point.
No,
let alone the mob.
It's more or less a way for him to, I guess, look like he's offering respect and giving him time to go, do I want to do this, and get the actual...
I would have liked to see more about why he was doing it, because it's not just, he's showing respect to his father, but some of it is he's probably still trading on his father's name, because his father is obviously a very powerful and respected mob boss, and he doesn't want anyone to know that he ain't no more.
Well, I think you hit upon the word right there, respect. Yeah. So apparently Duke did them a favor, and it's like, well, we pay back our favors, so I don't want to do this, but I guess we'll do it. And I'm still holding up my father's good name, even though he's sitting there in his own fantasy.
The day may come when I ask you for a small favor. That day may never come, but...
are you all right, Max?
I don't know. I got all this cotton in my mouth.
Would you like a humanimal to help you?
Orange peel in my mouth. I can't...
Manimal? Cop Rock?
He's on hiatus.
Cop Rock. So we see this, and then basically Alan King comes back and says, yeah, fine, we'll go ahead and do this. So he keeps planning this thing, most of which is done on tape of one kind or another.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the feds are like, well, we're not interested in this guy who's planning a robbery. We're only interested in whomever, the mob, and this guy who may or may not be in the Black Panthers. And they never seem to make any effort to either identify Duke or anybody else that's involved in this, nor tip anyone off that this is going to happen.
Yeah, you have the entire government surveillance network focusing on these guys, and who turns them in? An 8-year-old kid with a ham radio. Which I kind of like that.
This little Jewish kid who's like, he's got this coin collection in his safe, and Duke comes in and he's like, open the safe. And the kid's like, no, I ain't gonna do it. He's like, you better open it or else. And the kid's like, or else what? I can't walk or breathe. I can't leave the room. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And finally they, have to bust open the safe, but the kid's like, well, I get to see how they bust open the safe.
Oh, that's amazing. That's terrific. Yeah.
Don't leave this room, kid. So
Where am I gonna go?
They lock the door, and he's gets out of his bed, goes to his wheelchair, goes to his closet, opens it up, and turns on the ham radio.
The thing I liked was he doesn't go, get me the police. He ends up having to talk to someone in Hawaii and someone in Portland, and they call the police.
Collect.
Yes,
And they get
one
the
of the
world's...
most unhelpful, dumbest police operators.
No, she's just a regular
She's
operator.
a regular operator.
Yeah.
I wasn't clear on that.
Is this paid for? No, it's collect. Is this call paid for? 3 times she asked that question. Which, if you don't remember talking to the operators in the 70s, well, this will bring back a lot of
One
pleasant
ringy
memories.
dingy.
Yeah, so one of the whole reasons they do this gig when they do it is they're like, look, it's a holiday weekend, it's Labor Day weekend, most people are going to be out of town. Well, apparently most people are out of town if they don't live in the building.
Yeah.
Because as far as I can tell, nobody in the building actually left for the weekend.
Yeah, all the apartments appear to be occupied.
Yeah.
And by a colorful cast of characters.
Yeah, some of which are Conrad Bain and some of which are the Wicked Witch of the West. And I love her roommate whose name I don't know, but she's like, oh boy, goody goody, a burglary.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's Mrs. The character was Mrs. Hathaway. I forget who the actress was.
Jethro wants to be a rock star.
No, that's Miss Hathaway.
Oh.
Yeah, no, she's the one who's fun.
Yeah.
Margaret Hamilton is like, oh no, and this old woman this is like the most exciting thing that's happened to her in years. She's like, oh yeah, you can just go in there. The money's over there. She reads dirty books.
Yeah. Which is about the level of the comedy of this film. It's not really meant to have much comedy in it. It doesn't. And this is the early 70s too, so we've got a very specific look at a couple of items in here, like the tech. Like, we're talking a lot about the surveillance tech. And the first guy...
analog.
Well, yeah, but the first guy who's a waiter in this Wise Guy restaurant, I swear he goes into the bathroom stall when they've left, and he's like, I'm waiting for dun 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 dun, because he basically has a shoe phone. I mean, he's wired, and that's where the battery is, but it's like, it's Mission Impossible. It really is.
Kind of. Except you see them. All right, I'm getting them on film. Let me get the camera.
Yeah.
Hang on. Pretty much. Big reel-to-reel tapes.
Yeah, and they've got guys that have... There was one guy with a radio mic, but they also have a lot of binoculars and a lot of just people talking into tape recorders, because that's what they had. In a way, though, I don't think it was meant this way, but in a way it was kind of also a comment on what we thought was going on in Russia at the time to, let's say, everybody.
Yeah, the surveillance.
Yeah, the secret police there. So... there's definitely that is the whole idea of how much we're being watched, which again, they had no idea at the time. The best part is that even though there's people watching you, they don't know who you are or what you're doing. Even if you're plotting something illegal, they probably won't do anything about it.
It's unlike now where they feed your face into image recognition and go, this person, let's look at their social media and find out every single detail.
Yeah. But this is also the early 70s, so we get... we'll get a couple things. We get a little early 70s prejudice on parade. So we get some anti-black stuff. We got the anti-gay stuff.
Yep. What do they refer to Martin Balsam as a sex deviant?
Yeah. Well, back then, I think in some places it was still considered a mental illness.
It was. No, it was still in the DSM-3, the catalog of mental illness, and I think the DSM-4 up until... I think it was 1990 when they finally took it out.
I don't know.
Maybe
it's
the 80s. Dumb. It was certainly still there in 71.
Yeah. And we get some there's an interesting twist in here. So the mob boss is like, yeah, we'll pay for it, but you got to take Muggsy here with you. And by the way, Duke, could you kill Muggsy while he's out? Because he's Atne Uteite Bray.
That kind of surprised me, because none of the guys in the crew are killers.
Right.
Why would you... the only thing I can figure is Pirelli must be a made guy. He must be sort of old guard and... Alan King, I'm sorry, I never remember what his actual character's name is, because he's just Alan damn King. That's all I can think of when I see him. Alan King doesn't want any of his fingerprints anywhere near this. He wants to be completely separate, so I guess that part makes some sense. It also just doesn't seem to be a good idea. These guys don't know how to do that. They aren't professionals.
Yeah, but it's pretty obvious Sean does.
Yeah.
And that's all that counts. And I think it's also a way for them to go, look, if anything goes south, you can't talk because we know things. We know you killed a guy.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
That felt to me...
That gives them leverage. Okay.
Yeah, I had no problem with that. I just thought it was interesting because of the group of people, this little mismatched Mission Impossible, there is... this gorilla who's really about as subtle as a thrown brick.
Yeah.
And really has no business being part of this.
You can tell this guy was a strong arm. He was the guy you sent to beat people up because he likes it.
Or he just went off and started beating people up on his own, which is one of the reasons they have him there.
The guy is pretty clearly, he has some impulse control issues.
Yeah. I will say, too, that there's a lot of resources put onto either keeping track of Alan King or eventually even when they don't even tip off the cops. It's a little Jewish kid. I only say that because he was Jewish. It says they had said he was Jewish. The little Jewish kid, as soon as the cops get the message from the ham radio operator in wherever, Delavan, Indiana, they send the army because there's like 60 cops that show up.
A lot, yep. But you kind of understand because that's an expensive building. There are lots of rich people in it, and that's where the cops go fastest. Sorry, folks, that's just true.
Well, you also have to wonder how many of them were nearby, because literally 2 blocks, or not even 2 blocks away, we can see there's a parade.
No, yeah.
So they just like, stop watching the parade, come over here.
Yeah, could have been.
But it is a block that is not only cordoned off from, anybody who might wander by. It is cordoned off from all of the rest of New York because there is not a single person visible when they get this whole thing. And it is a lot of resources for a bunch of crooks, which quite honestly, they would have been a lot better off letting get out and then just pulling over the van.
Yeah.
That's live. That's how you know it's live radio. I coughed. So, and the other thing, too, is that because it's the early 70s, they did a lot of things in American cinema where they started looking at people who weren't quite so perfect as your protagonist.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I watched The French Connection, and that is a very morally...
It's a gray movie.
And it's visually very gray, too.
Yeah.
They were like, let's wash all the color out of that. But you started to get a lot, and, characters like Popeye Doyle, who got results, but maybe we shouldn't let him...
You're out of control, Doyle!
Yeah. And so here our main characters, our sympathetic characters, are a bunch of crooks.
Yeah.
Do you think that works?
I think so. It's certainly not the first time we've seen it. Look at The Godfather, for heaven's sake. These guys are murderers, drug pushers, extortionists, and yet we sympathize with them.
But they're people, Max. They're warm, compassionate people.
Yep, and they serve really good food at their weddings.
They probably do.
But
here, though...
I don't think it worked quite as well because we don't really get to know many of them. We get a little bit of stuff about Andersen.
Andersen, that's me.
Yep. I'm Sean Connery Andersen.
Of the 3, I guess we learn the most about Pops. And that's literally that he does not know. He's afraid of even getting off the bus because he was put in the 40s. I think he said it was 1943 he went in.
He's been in for like almost 30 years.
So he has literally no idea how modern society works. And it frightens him.
This is a real thing.
Yeah.
They have this with longtime prisoners being released. A lot of them either intentionally get sent back or they take their own lives. They have a lot of trouble readjusting. It happens, but it's very difficult.
Well, it's very regimented. Like everything is scheduled. Every point of the day, you know where you're supposed to be and know you're supposed to do, and suddenly you don't have any of that. So I thought, although they don't really do that much with it, that was an interesting portrayal on screen. The kid apparently decides to go straight and goes to work in a hardware store that has all the equipment they're going to need for this heist, which is handy.
And then decide, no, okay, I'll do another job.
And Connery is not interested in not getting caught. He's going to go right off and steal something.
Yeah.
So it is that more morally ambiguous time in films. I'm not saying that we've gotten any less ambiguous, but there was a real turning point in the heroes of the 50s and 60s and the
anti-heroes in some ways.
In some ways.
The flawed hero. That becomes a much bigger thing in the 70s.
Well, but they often would try to work in something like, well, they're brutal and they're cunning, but they're actually trying to do something good. In this case, they're just trying to steal from rich people.
We want to make money. We want lots of money from rich people. But although Connery has a couple of little monologues about when
The man.
the man, and how what's really in prison, being here or being in an office and a job you hate and a life you hate.
Yeah. And my question was, how would you know?
Yeah.
I also just want somebody to lean over and tap Connery in the shoulder and go, "You're the man."
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me, white boy. You don't get to complain like that.
Yeah, especially because you're a liney. So yeah, there's an interesting change in main character. I mean, the Thomas Crown Affair, which we did an episode on, same thing. We're empathizing with the crooks, and we kind of want them to get away with it. Did you want them to get away with this?
I guess kind of, because part of it, they talk about they're robbing rich people.
Right.
And as Connery says as his justification, everyone's insured. And if they're not, they deserve to lose their money. But if they're insured, then you're doing them a favor. You're getting rid of the stuff, they're getting a lot of cash for it.
Well, it reminded me of that speech from Zorg in Fifth Element. It's like,
God.
see, I drop over this glass, and all these little robots come out, and all the people who design those little robots, and their little bitty children get to go on and have other children, and blah, blah, blah. So, see, I'm actually doing everyone a favor by robbing these rich people.
It's very much a rationalization.
I'm keeping the insurance company people in jobs. I am, keeping money flowing, and what? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Other than that, honestly, I don't know. I wasn't that invested in whether they got away with it. I was mostly interested in the mechanics of it. And it was like, really? So your whole thing is get in the truck and drive away. Then they had, the van in the truck. That was a good idea. That was clever. And that worked for half a block.
Well, the kind of van they picked is exceedingly badly balanced, so you can't really corner over about 25.
Yeah.
And so as soon as Christopher Walken turns the wheel, it flips over and over and over, and he is hurt. We don't know if he died.
I thought he was dead because he's lying there bleeding and his eyes are open and fixed.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah. And then we don't know about what happens to Duke because he's shot in the back and manages to climb up a chimney and then come back down, and then they find him and he's okay.
Yeah, but he's either going to die or he's going back to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how they find him because they're searching the whole building looking for anybody who got away because they can't find Duke. And somebody finds the tape recorder in the basement and picks up the headphones like, what the heck is this for?
Yeah,
and they're like, what is this? And the security guard's like, oh, that's for the apartment 2B. Yeah.
Or not 2B.
Or is it 3G? That was the apartment 3G.
The girls.
Three girls. And they're like, oh, I hear somebody breathing. And they actually managed to go back and pick him up. So
irony, apparently.
This is also, as I said, this is early 70s, and the pacing in films of that time is vastly different than pacing now. What did you think of the pacing?
I thought it was pretty uneven. There are parts where it moves along quite a bit, like when they're actually doing the heist, and there's parts where it really kind of slows down, like when they're in the car talking, or when Alan King is talking to Papa.
Okay.
So I found it a little uneven, but not, I didn't find it annoying.
I found it still interesting. Like, I was still interested in what was going on, and there's actually some places that they allow the movie to breathe and expand, which we don't see much anymore. Like, we see a little bit more of the neighborhoods, we see a little bit more of the people. I would say I thought that the actual heist part went on too long.
Yeah, I could see that, actually. They went to... We didn't have to see them going into every apartment. We didn't have to see every minute in the elevator.
We didn't have to see Conrad Bain, although we wouldn't have seen him get punched in the face.
We did have to see that. That was necessary. Sorry, Mr. Bain.
Yeah, I wonder if Todd Bridges shows that on rerun all the time. So yeah, it's a very non-current day paced movie.
Yeah.
And that might have something to do why it's not as well known as it could be. But we'll get to that part later on. I don't know if you noticed this, but they have this big Mayflower moving van, which is a company I've heard
real
of.
Company.
But when they take the van to the loading dock and they open the back door and we see the little... The little Blofeld mini sub back there, minivan.
Yeah.
There's a plate on the back of the Mayflower van. Did you see what it said?
No.
It said Matlock.
Oh, no.
And I don't know what Matlock is, but apparently I wonder if that's... Yeah. Which we've had two of now. So we had Andy Griffith and Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then one thing they do, this is something that kind of threw me towards the end of the film. I don't know if it threw you.
Mm-hmm.
As they get to the heist... The director, Sidney Lumet, decides, or Lumet, I don't know how one says it.
I've always heard Lumet.
Me too, but everything's better with Sidney Lumet on it. That's a deeper.
You're fired.
They do this weird thing with skipping time.
Yeah. It's
Live radio. Every time I cough, it's live radio. Except it's still pre-recorded. Anyway, so they show them getting into the building, and then we cut to cops talking to victims afterwards. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that?
That was a little jarring, I have to say. But I thought it kind of worked, because it's like, I don't know, reverse foreshadowing. It's like, well, then the guy did this. Then we get to see it, and it's like, okay, it's not exactly the way he described it. So a lot of it, I thought it sort of tied in with the idea of surveillance, because this is witness testimony, which is another form.
I'm going to call that surveillance.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's another way of information gathering.
Well, when they started doing that, did you automatically assume either that they had escaped or that they got caught?
No, because we see them bringing bodies out that are covered, going, okay, maybe they killed one of the residents, maybe it's them.
Yeah.
I kind of liked the way it didn't really give anything away.
I, too, found it jarring because it felt like we were seeing the end point, but we're still going to have to sit through it to get there, which it was a little weird. Mm-hmm. We're not talking Arrival here.
Yeah.
Which is a little more clever. It was just an odd directorial choice, because I think if they had done a little bit more of that throughout the film, I might actually have liked it better. Because it actually might have added more tension, because we know something is going to happen with the cops, we just don't know what.
Yeah.
Because all we're watching is them basically surveying Duke and not knowing who he is and not paying any attention to what he's planning. So I don't know. It was an odd thing to do out of nowhere, I thought. But it was definitely a directorial and style choice.
It was a choice, yep.
There was a machine in there. I don't know if you saw that. I'm like, what the hell is a randomatic?
I have that in my notes too. I don't know.
But apparently, if you push enough buttons, it will bring up people's mugshots and stuff.
Yeah. Randomatic does not sound like something law enforcement would want to use.
It reminded me of that machine, that electronic brain that Wile E. Coyote got. What do I do now? Click, go back and take your medicine. I mean, I think it was a real machine. I just literally couldn't figure out what it was supposed to do.
Yep.
Other than magically kick out a card. But so once we see that army of cops show up, though, I'm like, oh, well, that's the end of that. I honestly didn't think anybody was going to get out. I didn't know if anyone was going to get killed or not, but it's like, not a chance. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I do like the fact that they at least try to use the little Blofeld mini escapes van. It just didn't quite work. Also, it was nice to know that there wasn't any other crime going on that day, because they could basically, all of Manhattan's police force could show up for this. So,
Yeah, well.
What else do you have for your notes?
Hang on, I had something and it's just flown away. One thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting and sort of out of nowhere, and that's Andersen's relationship with Ingrid.
Yeah.
There's a moment where they're in bed together and they've clearly just done the nasty.
The nerdy? You were going to say done the nerdy.
Done the nerdy.
Oh, is it good for you yet?
I know, not really appropriate to either of them, but they've just done the white and nerdy, and
I not want to picture that.
No.
Thanks.
And they have this rather oblique conversation where he's like, "Did it happen? Did you like it?" She's like, "No, I didn't like being out of control." And you realize they're talking about orgasm. That he made her have an orgasm and she didn't enjoy it because she doesn't like being out of control, and that's a moment of out of control. I remember thinking, that's really interesting. Now we're going to find out more about her, and nope, apparently not.
No. Hey, it's a 70s film with a woman in. What do you expect?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, at least there were some people of color in this film on both sides, which, I mean, not a lot, but there was some. But yeah, the idea of a woman being given something to... Oh, Max, please. Yeah, we've seen a lot too much of that.
I also liked in the apartment with Margaret Hamilton and with the two old women.
Yeah.
When she starts screaming, when Margaret Hamilton is the one who's obviously the more upset, and she's like, "But those were your fathers." And the old woman looks at her and goes, "My father was a first-class son of a bitch, Kaler."
Yeah, she was fun for 5 seconds.
Yeah. Also, I would like to point out there is one scene where Garrett Morris and his strike force are coming in, and I noticed on the back of one of them he was carrying a Tommy gun, a Thompson submachine gun with a 50-round drum. Now, I was pretty sure this was true, but I went and looked it up just in case. The New York City cops have not used Tommy guns since the 1920s.
Maybe his name was Thomas.
No.
You don't know.
They don't walk around with machine guns.
Why not?
Because, well, A, it's illegal in New York. B, only the tax squad, the SWAT people, are allowed to do that because there's too much chance of collateral damage.
Haven't you ever watched cop movies? It does not seem to be a problem.
Yeah.
Or a superhero film.
Yeah, because now the tax squad is the first one who shows up, and they're all out there with their M16s and what have you.
They were truthful and say on the poster, "You will see Superman kill tens of thousands of innocent bystanders."
Yeah,
So-
yeah. By the way, why is it every time they shoot in the old Superman, they shoot him 6 times, he just stands there, they throw the gun at him, he ducks.
Well, it's
Why? I wanna
bigger and
know.
heavier than a bullet, Max. That's why.
I guess because all these pistols were made with kryptonite. I don't
it
know.
might dent his hair. His little curl.
The other thing that strikes me as interesting, I was hoping they would do something with it, but they don't. The very end of the film, crime's over, they've all been caught or killed, and you see
And
all
disavowed.
it's disavowed by the secretary, and you see all of the faceless, nameless but menacing government agency guys.
Yeah.
Going, okay, we have to erase everything.
Yeah, because apparently they were trying to spy on the mob or the Black Panthers or both.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any kind of
They had no
warrants,
jurisdiction. They had no court orders.
which makes you wonder why they were doing.
Kind of. Why don't they have them? These guys. I mean, he's a known criminal. The Black Panthers. That's a little iffier. Except
Well-
J. Edgar Hoover would have been like, here you go,
Yeah.
warrant. He hated them.
Yeah, because they wanted equal rights. Silly
Yes.
them.
Crazy bastards.
But-
but that. You know who everything ends up working out for? The mob boss, Alan King.
Yeah.
He gets rid of Pirelli. He doesn't get the money from the heist. But there's nothing connecting him, and all of the surveillance that they have on him, which could convict him of all sorts of things, is erased.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know, but I want to come back to that when our
Okay, we'll do
assessment
the
of the
wrap-up.
film. And
Yep.
it's speaking of getting to the end of the
Yep,
film,
okay.
we've gotten to the end of the show.
Welcome to the end of the film. The finish.
So Max,
Yes.
you hadn't heard of the Andersen
Hadn't
tapes?
seen it, hadn't heard it, hadn't bought the T-shirt, hadn't eaten the burger. Nope.
Ooh, burgers! I want a burger. What do you think of the Andersen tapes?
I kind of get why it's not very well known.
Uh-oh.
I don't think it's terrible. I just didn't find it very... It's not distinctive. I mean, it probably would have been for 1971 because it was a kind of a new sort of heist film. Well, in the way that it fails. Most heist movies, the criminals who are usually emphasized, they're not really bad. They're just misunderstood or something.
Godzilla doesn't mean to murder people. He just waves.
No, that's Gamera.
Gamera, that's true. He doesn't mean to murder
He just
people.
gets lonely.
That's
Even
his way of
giant
making
turtles.
friends.
Even giant turtles get lonely.
Smush, smush, smush. Oops. Sorry. That's the dubbed version of Gamera. Yeah.
I see. But I mean, he's the one who gets away with it, in effect. And usually, like I say, the heist movies, we see them get away. They're on a beach somewhere. Like, aha, we may not have gotten all the money. They don't get hauled away to jail or the morgue. That was surprising. And again, that's kind of a bold choice. But most of it, I just don't feel enough of a connection with the characters to get really invested in it. What about you?
Well, I want to ask you one more question about that because it brings something to mind. Have you ever been really invested in any character Sean Connery has played? And if so, where?
Hang on.
'Cause-
Yes, Man Who Would Be King.
I've heard that's very good.
It is very good. I got very into that and very into him, but that's also a terrific script and an amazing director. And he's working with Michael friggin' Caine.
Michael
Caine. Yeah, it's right.
I think that
there may be other. Nope. A little bit with.
How about Lion in Winter?
What was it? He's not in that. Oh no, he's in that in like some very brief part, isn't he?
I think so.
Because Peter O'Toole is the one who plays.
Well, he plays the lion. I thought he was in that. Maybe not. Anyway.
And I think you may be mixed up because Timothy Dalton is in that.
Oh, and he played James Bond,
Yes,
and of course, yeah, that's what I'm
6
thinking.
Degrees of James Bond.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
I mean, I like him as Indy's dad.
Indy's Daddy's all right. I kind of liked him in, I think it was Entrapment with Catherine Zeta-Jones. Once you get past the creepy part of, stop making out with her. Oh.
Okay.
You're old enough to be her. You're old enough to be dead. Stop that.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
That's a deeper.
But I still got kind of invested. I didn't want to see him get caught. So
But
I
not
think
here.
not here.
Yeah.
Not really. No, they didn't do that with him. They didn't. I started to get a little invested with Pops. I kind of like the fact that at the end he's still together enough to throw the blame on Pirelli. He's like, oh yeah, this was all his idea, the dead guy.
Yeah.
It's actually very smart.
Because they can't prove anything. And
Yeah, they don't know. None of them say anything.
If somehow Duke survives, because we don't know if he does or not,
Yeah.
and he hears about this, he can go, oh yeah, Pirelli made me do it.
Yeah, and again, I found the ending very ambiguous and not in any kind of interesting way. It's like, oh, so they're just erasing the tapes, and we don't really know what happens to anybody, and okay, huh? What about you? What did you think?
Well, interesting that you just brought up the ending, because my assessment at my last note was the entire film is for nothing.
Yeah.
Assuming Duke doesn't die, he and the kid and Pops, of course the kid is probably dead, go back to jail where they were and they started the film. The feds have to start over with their investigation, and Ingrid is still with her skanky boyfriend.
Yeah.
So really, this entire film changes nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
It's kind of exactly like that little speech that Duke gives, where it's like, hey, we're not really hurting anybody because they have insurance. They don't actually lose their stuff anyway.
No.
Although, if some of that evidence just happens to disappear.
To walk away, yeah. Some probably got destroyed. I mean, some
I suppose. Some of the art
artwork,
pieces.
yeah.
So, it's hard for me to watch a film where at the very end, the film basically says, yeah, this literally changed nothing. It's literally a moment of excitement in otherwise humdrum lives, which may be the people in the apartment. Although that apartment building may actually be worse than the one in Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah.
The one in the Only Murders in the Building is a palace. And this thing's not that much different. It's like, how does that... No, I can't... Anyway, apparently it was a convent, but whatever.
Yeah.
I still can't picture these apartments.
No.
Like you said, I don't think any of the characters has a lot of depth. I think we are supposed to be empathetic because there's these speeches about getting back at the man, but that's not why he's doing it. I mean, he's only saying that to Ingrid so she doesn't get upset.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, he's just taking money for himself. And he's not giving it to any poor people. He's not Robin Hood.
But the thing is, at one point, when Ingrid is trying to choose between him and Werner, he says, I'll stop.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I won't do this crime. I'll go straight. For you.
Did you buy it?
I don't know. It's hard to tell when the first line he says to her is, I haven't been laid in 10 years.
Well, he hasn't.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. He's pretty friendly with the kid, so I'm not sure that's true. Of course, that's just prison sex. It doesn't mean anything. So
I don't know if I bought it. He said it awfully glibly.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It's okay.
I
don't think it stands out for a reason. I think that there's nothing that exciting about it. I think it is surprising that they don't succeed in the end. Spoiler, but this is an over 50-year-old film that you've possibly never heard of. So I would say, I would go either way. I'm literally right on the fence. If you want to skip this, I don't think you're missing much.
Yeah.
If you want to see another heist film from the 70s that you've never seen,
Or you're a Sidney Lumet completist.
Yeah. Or a Sean Connery completist, sure. And it was literally the turning point where he was like, yeah, I'm not going to do these things anymore. I'm going to do something other than Bond. I think he'd already skipped On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and they lured him back for Diamonds Are Forever, and then he would only come back when they said, hey, do you want to remake that film you made back in the 60s with that other company where you can't actually exactly be... you are James Bond, but... and you can wear a different hairpiece. That's fine. So I'm gonna go right on the fence. If you want to, great. If not, that's fine.
Yeah, that's kind kind of how I feel. It's like, it's okay.
But still, hey, thanks, Degsy. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have heard of this otherwise, and I always like filling in little corners of stuff that I wouldn't have heard of. So thank you, Degsy O'Brien, for
Nicely
the suggestion.
foiled.
We'd also like to thank the rest of you ahead of time for
Yeah.
answering this week's poll question. And that question, speaking of Sean Connery, is what is your favorite performance by Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Is it Bond or Beyond? Which,
It is.
yeah, Beyond or Be Bond or be. Answer us by emailing us directly at maxmikemovies.com. We love getting your emails, whether it's about the poll question or about ideas for the show or even talkback where you're like, your show sucks, and then we can just make fun of you.
Yep.
Or you say something more erudite like Adam sometimes does. You can go to our website, maxmikemovies.com, where all of our episodes are still there waiting for you to listen to them again and again and again. And they're mostly commercial free. Do I count? Yeah. Then you could also, if you like, go to Facebook, which we're still at, although I've noticed lately people are, what is that, leaving in droves? Or
Yeah.
is it driving in leaves? I can't remember.
I think they're digging in loaves.
Sure. Hey, I want some bread now and to go with my burger.
Yeah.
And that's still Max Mike Movies. You can, in fact, listen to a podcast app of your choice, and it doesn't matter because we're probably there under Max Mike Movies, including YouTube Music.
And you can find us on Blue Sky.
Blue Ski, we are there. And you could, well, I think nobody so far has even hearted us except
No, we've had a couple of hearts.
a couple of hearts. Are you sure they're not just me?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, cool. But you could answer us there, too.
Yep.
We post a poll question in the episode. But speaking of episodes, we are not anywhere near done with
No.
Remember, You Asked For It. So, Max, who and what was asked for next week by whom with the asking thing?
Well, this one is from Tyler Stewart, excuse me. And he recommended a movie I have never heard of.
Oh,
have never watched.
You never heard it?
Nope.
Oh.
Six String Samurai.
Oh, ding-a-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding.
Yep, which I believe is the...
I think banjos have 5 strings.
which I think is the story of a traveling guitar player who learns about life and love and teaches us the true meaning of Christmas.
You know, I took a quick look at its plot synopsis, and the story, I think, is actually even stranger than that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
it
Well, we'll
somehow
find out. Come back.
involves post-apocalypse and Buddy Holly, but
Well, that was my next guess.
no Christmas.
No Christmas.
So
Oh,
join us next week for
Yes.
6
String.
Samurai.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.